All right, next is Big Billy. He says, question for Bradley. In the past, you mentioned getting penalized by spamming your schema. I think my SEO guy may be spamming my schema. Can you explain what you were doing exactly that got you a penalty so the rest of us will avoid that? Yeah, I had a manual notification on a couple different lead gen sites that I was using review schema, right? So you're not supposed to put that site wide. You're supposed to put it on specific pages and that kind of stuff. And I was trying to force the review stars to show up in the SERP. So I was, trying to add schema in different places and things like that. So I got a manual notice, manual action notice inside a Search Console about it. And it wasn't too bad because all I had to do was go basically remove the offending schema and then submit it for reconsideration, and it was lifted in both cases. So I didn't really have any problem with it other than that. But I know that you can overdo it with schema. And so that's something that, I would recommend that you don't do. But Marco, do you have a kind of a better guideline for him than that?
No, we're setting up a test with Heavy Hitter Club. We're writing, Rob is writing some ridiculous amounts of schema and referencing everything, and Google pulls it in fine, and it validates just fine. The bot seems to really like it. So I guess it depends on how you're approaching this. If you're doing fake schema, like fake reviews and all that, you could get into a lot of trouble.
Yeah.
But as long as it's relevant schema, which relates to your entity in the proper way, the sky's the limit. Literally, you could write probably dozens or hundreds of pages of code for schema. The point in all of this would be like diminishing returns. How much schema do you write where it becomes simply just doing it for the sake of doing it, which is something you don't want to get into. You want to write schema that works. At some point, if the returns start diminishing, then you're doing too much and you need to roll it back.
Yeah. So like adding schema markup, like again, the penalties that I got are at least the manual action notices that I received from that. I mean, again, this was probably 4 years ago. And that was because I was adding, aggregate review schema to all the pages, even on stuff that didn't necessarily have any reviews, and that's part of the reason. So I wouldn't recommend that. But like I've got local sites now that have, several locations, and each location has its own page on the main branded site, and each location has its own aggregate rating. And I do add review schema on those pages because it makes sense, and it can cause a rich snippet. And on the mobile devices, and especially, it's pretty cool because it'll pull in. It creates like this little card almost on a mobile device that shows like the reviews, and pulls in an image and everything else. It's pretty cool. But I'm testing something right now, guys, that I even asked about it at PoFu Live, and none of the people there were using it. But when I realized that at PoFu Live, some of the like I said, Rob, Marco just mentioned it. Rob, he's been writing like ridiculous amounts of schema. And I asked specifically, are you using any sort of application to do that? And he goes, no, I'm just kind of coding it out manually. I've tried some other apps and stuff, but there was too much of a learning curve. I just do it quicker on my own. Well, not me. I can tell you, when I try to hand code schema, like if I make one mistake, miss a comma somewhere or a curly bracket somewhere or something like that, then next thing you know, a quotation mark somewhere, then it screws the whole thing up. And sometimes I'll spend hours trying to find where the mistake is, and it's just better to start fresh for me. So I'm testing schemaapp.com. It's a bit expensive, but I'm only testing it on one URL or one domain right now. So it's $30 a month, and it's got a learning curve. There's no doubt. Right. Anyways, check out schemaapp.com. I don't have anything good to say about it yet, except that I was able to create some beautiful schema for one of my locations, lead gen locations, that it took me about an hour and a half to do it, though, because I had to learn how to use the app. So just keep that in mind.